Think back to the sound of metal footsteps echoing through the steel mill. The moment the T-800 slowly lowered itself into the molten metal and delivered that unforgettable line.
I'll be back.
For millions of viewers, Terminator 2 wasn't just another movie. It became a defining memory of an era. Arnold Schwarzenegger turned into an unstoppable action icon. Linda Hamilton transformed Sarah Connor into one of the fiercest female heroes Hollywood had ever created. And the young Edward Furlong suddenly looked like the fresh face the entire industry was betting on. But 35 years later, the real-life story looks very different from those powerful on-screen memories. The spotlight faded. Careers collapsed. One of the film's brightest young stars spiraled into addiction and legal trouble, while others quietly fought personal battles the public never saw. And some familiar faces now exist only in memory. So, what really happened to the cast of Terminator 2 after the spotlight faded? And whose life changed the most? Join us as we delve into the heartbreaking stories and uncover the untold truths about these unforgettable characters. Number 1. Edward Furlong. Think back to the rebellious teenager on the dirt bike, the one hacking ATMs, rolling his eyes at adults, and somehow teaching a Terminator what it means to be human. In Terminator 2, Judgment Day, John Connor wasn't just another character in an action movie. He was the emotional center of the entire story, the boy the future of humanity depended on. And the teenager who played him, Edward Furlong, almost instantly became one of the most recognizable young faces in the world. Practically overnight, he went from a kid discovered at a Pasadena Boys and Girls Club to a global star standing beside Arnold Schwarzenegger in one of the biggest films ever made. Fans adored him. Teen magazines rushed to put him on their covers, and Hollywood believed it had just found the next major young star of the 1990s. For a while, that prediction seemed completely accurate. Throughout the 1990s, Furlong continued appearing in films like Pet Sematary 2, Detroit Rock City, and especially American History X. His role in that film revealed a far more mature side of his acting. The rebellious teenager audiences once knew was now part of a much darker and more complex story, and many believed he was stepping into the next stage of his career. The path from teen idol to serious actor seemed to be opening right in front of him. But as the early 2000s arrived, Edward Furlong's story began to take a very different direction. Instead of headlines about new films, his name increasingly appeared in reports connected to courtrooms and police records. Over time, the pattern became difficult to ignore. Arrests related to domestic disputes, violations of restraining orders, probation violations that eventually led to jail time. One incident followed another. At the same time, Furlong was openly battling substance abuse, a struggle that gradually pulled him further away from the career that once seemed inevitable. The contrast was stark. On screen, John Connor was the boy destined to lead humanity into the future. Off-screen, the actor behind him was fighting a series of personal battles that threatened to erase the promise he once carried. Hollywood, as it often does, kept moving forward. The big roles disappeared. Casting calls stopped coming. Studios that once saw Furlong as the future of a generation quietly shifted their attention to newer faces. And year by year, the distance between the teenage icon of Terminator 2 and the man Edward Furlong had become wider. The industry that once celebrated him began to remember him mostly for what might have been. In later interviews, Furlong himself acknowledged how close he came to losing everything. Addiction, he admitted, consumed years of his life. The fame that arrived when he was barely a teenager turned out to be far heavier than anyone expected. The pressure, the sudden wealth, the constant attention, it all arrived before he had the tools to manage it. By the time he realized how far things had slipped, rebuilding his life would take far longer than the rise that made him famous. Today, Edward Furlong is no longer the rebellious teenager audiences remember from Terminator 2. Now in his mid-40s, he lives a far quieter life than the one Hollywood once imagined for him. The blockbuster roles never returned, but he has spoken publicly about getting sober and trying to rebuild stability after years of chaos. From time to time, he appears at fan conventions dedicated to classic films of the 1990s. For many fans, those moments feel strangely emotional. Standing in line to meet him, they are reminded of the boy who once stood beside a Terminator and believed the future could still be changed. But time rarely allows people to remain frozen in their most famous moment. The face that once symbolized Hollywood's next generation now carries the marks of years that were far more turbulent than anyone expected. Edward Furlong didn't become the long-lasting superstar many predicted in 1991. Instead, his story took a far more complicated path, and it leaves us wondering something uncomfortable. When Hollywood turns a teenager into a global star overnight, is it giving them a dream or placing a kind of pressure that few young lives are prepared to carry? Number 2. Linda Hamilton. Following the turbulent path of Edward Furlong, another face from Terminator 2 whose life took unexpected turns is Linda Hamilton, the woman who brought Sarah Connor to life. In the early 1990s, Sarah Connor was not just another action hero. She became one of the most powerful female characters ever seen in Hollywood. Strong, fearless, and mentally unbreakable, Sarah Connor represented a new kind of heroine. Someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the toughest action stars of the era. And Linda Hamilton's transformation for the role became legendary. Her intense physical training, the hardened look in her eyes, and the emotional weight she carried on screen made the character unforgettable. For many fans, she wasn't just acting as Sarah Connor. She was Sarah Connor. At the height of Terminator 2's success in 1991, Hamilton seemed unstoppable. The film became a global phenomenon, and her performance was widely praised as one of the most iconic portrayals of a female action hero in cinema history. But behind that powerful image on screen, Linda Hamilton's personal life was far more complicated than most audiences realized. Not long after the film's success, Hamilton entered a high-profile marriage with director James Cameron, the very filmmaker who had helped define her most famous role. At first, it looked like the perfect Hollywood partnership, but the relationship soon became turbulent, marked by intense pressure and emotional strain. The marriage ended in divorce in 1999, and the separation reportedly involved a massive settlement that drew headlines across the entertainment world. Around the same time, Hamilton began speaking openly about something she had struggled with for years: bipolar disorder. In later interviews, she admitted that the condition had affected many aspects of her life, including relationships and her ability to maintain stability during the height of her fame. For someone who had played one of the strongest women in film history, the revelation added a striking layer of contrast between the character audiences admired and the private battles she was quietly fighting. As the years passed, Hamilton gradually stepped away from the relentless spotlight of Hollywood. While she continued acting in television projects and occasional film roles, she never pursued the kind of constant blockbuster career many people expected after Terminator 2. Instead, she chose a quieter path, focusing more on her personal well-being and family life. Today, Linda Hamilton is no longer the hardened warrior audiences remember from the steel mill finale of Terminator 2. Now, in her late 60s, she lives a far more private life, largely away from the Hollywood machine that once defined her career. Yet her legacy remains deeply respected. In 2019, she surprised fans by returning to the franchise in Terminator: Dark Fate, revisiting Sarah Connor decades after the character first captured the world's imagination. Time, of course, has changed her appearance and her place in the industry, but the impact of her performance remains undeniable. Sarah Connor is still considered one of the most influential female action heroes ever created. And Linda Hamilton's story is a reminder that behind even the strongest characters on screen, there can be years of private battles that audiences never see. Number 3. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Power, fame, and a shocking secret. In the early 1990s, Schwarzenegger wasn't just a movie star. He was one of the most powerful icons in Hollywood. With his towering physique, unmistakable accent, and unforgettable lines like, "I'll be back," he had already become the face of the action genre. But Terminator 2, Judgment Day, elevated that image to another level. In the film, the once terrifying machine returned as a protector, and Schwarzenegger transformed the Terminator into something audiences had never seen before, both unstoppable and strangely human. At the peak of the film's success, he seemed almost larger than life, a symbol of strength and invincibility that defined an entire era of blockbuster cinema. Throughout the 1990s, Schwarzenegger's dominance in Hollywood continued. Films like True Lies, Total Recall, and Kindergarten Cop showed that he could move effortlessly between explosive action and unexpected comedy. At the height of his career, he was one of the highest-paid actors in the world, and studios built massive productions around his name alone. For many fans, Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't just represent a movie star, he represented the golden age of big-budget action films. Yet Schwarzenegger's life would eventually take a turn few people could have predicted. In the early 2000s, when many people still expected Arnold Schwarzenegger to continue dominating Hollywood, he suddenly took a completely different path. In 2003, the name that once appeared on action movie posters showed up on a ballot, and he won the recall election to become the governor of California. For nearly a decade afterward, Schwarzenegger stepped away from film sets to run one of the largest states in the United States, serving 2 full terms in office. His journey seemed to go far beyond anything Hollywood could have written, from bodybuilding champion to global movie star, and then into the center of political power. But years later, another story emerged that changed how many people saw him. In 2011, shortly after leaving office, Schwarzenegger admitted that he had fathered a child with the family's longtime housekeeper, a secret that had been kept for years. The revelation quickly spread across the world and ended his 25-year marriage to journalist Maria Shriver, casting a very different light on a man who had long been viewed as a symbol of discipline and self-control. Today, in his late 70s, Arnold Schwarzenegger remains a globally recognized figure, though in a very different way than during his action hero peak. He continues to make occasional film appearances, advocate for environmental causes, and connect with fans around the world. Time has inevitably softened the image of the unstoppable machine, but his legacy remains deeply rooted in popular culture. Number 4. Robert Patrick. If there was one character in Terminator 2 that truly made audiences feel there was no way out, it was the T-1000. Not because he shouted, and not because he showed obvious brutality. In fact, what made the character so frightening was the cold calmness he carried, almost completely emotionless. With an empty stare and a slow but deliberate walk, Robert Patrick created a villain unlike anything audiences had seen before. He didn't need massive muscles or loud one-liners. Even so, the T-1000 became one of the most terrifying pursuers in movie history. The moment he appeared at the end of a hallway or in a rear-view mirror, viewers already knew the person in front of him had almost no chance of escaping. And precisely because the role was so perfect, it eventually became a massive shadow over Robert Patrick's career. After Terminator 2, Hollywood often remembered him as the T-1000 before anything else. For many years, Patrick continued working steadily in the film industry, appearing in movies like Copland and popular television series such as The X-Files. He became a highly reliable character actor, frequently cast as strong, serious, or mysterious figures. But there's one truth that's hard to deny. Whenever audiences see Robert Patrick appear on screen, the memory of the liquid metal killer from 1991 seems to return instantly. That role didn't just make him famous, it nearly defined his entire image in the eyes of the public. And in a way, that role became both the greatest gift and the greatest shadow of Robert Patrick's career. Number 5. Joe Morton. Among the many characters in Terminator 2, Miles Dyson may not have chased anyone through explosions, but his role carried enormous weight in the story. played by Joe Morton, Dyson was the brilliant Cyberdyne scientist whose research unknowingly laid the foundation for Skynet, the artificial intelligence that would one day threaten humanity. What made the character so memorable was the moment he realized the truth. The technology he believed would help the future could actually destroy it. Morton's performance gave Dyson a rare sense of humanity, turning him into one of the film's most tragic figures rather than a typical villain. Unlike some of his co-stars, Joe Morton's life after Terminator 2 did not revolve around scandals or dramatic collapses. Instead, his career moved forward quietly but steadily. Morton had already built a solid reputation as a stage and film actor, and after the movie's success, he continued working consistently in Hollywood, often portraying intelligent and authoritative characters. Years later, he gained renewed attention on television through his commanding role as Rowan Pope in the political drama Scandal, a performance that earned him an Emmy Award and introduced him to a new generation of viewers. Now in his 70s, Joe Morton remains active in the industry. While he never became the face of blockbuster fame, his career tells a different story, one of longevity, discipline, and an actor who simply kept showing up and delivering strong performances decade after decade. Number 6. Earl Boen. Among the familiar faces in Terminator 2, one character quietly stood on the opposite side of Sarah Connor's warnings: Dr. Peter Silberman, the skeptical psychiatrist played by Earl Boen. Throughout the film, Silberman represents the voice of disbelief, the man convinced that Sarah Connor's terrifying stories about machines and the future are nothing more than delusions. With calm authority and a clinical tone, Boen made the character feel frustratingly real. He wasn't evil. He was simply certain that he understood the truth, until the moment reality proved him wrong. After the Terminator films, Earl Boen continued working steadily in Hollywood, but not always where audiences expected to see him. Instead of becoming a constant on the big screen, he built a long career in voice acting, lending his distinctive voice to countless animated shows and video games. In 2005, Boen quietly stepped away from on-screen acting. In 2023, Earl Boen passed away at the age of 81, closing the chapter on a career that many viewers remember through one unforgettable image: a man slowly realizing that the nightmare he dismissed was real all along. Number 7. Jeanette Goldstein. In Terminator 2, Jeanette Goldstein wasn't a character with much screen time. She played Janelle Voight, John Connor's foster mother. But it only took one short scene, when the T-1000 impersonates Janelle in the kitchen, for the atmosphere to suddenly turn cold. That moment made audiences realize the liquid metal machine could become anyone. And even though she appeared for only a few minutes, Jeanette Goldstein's face remained unforgettable to many viewers. But what few people expected was how dramatically her life would change after Terminator 2. While many Hollywood actors try to hold on to the spotlight for as long as possible, Goldstein gradually stepped away from it. After appearing in several James Cameron films, such as Aliens and Titanic, she slowly began moving away from the film industry. There was no scandal, no dramatic career collapse, just a decision to take her life in a completely different direction. Then one day, fans were surprised to discover that the actress who had appeared in some of Hollywood's biggest blockbusters was now running a bra boutique in Los Angeles. Yes, after years on the sets of massive Hollywood productions, Jeanette Goldstein stepped into an entirely different world, running a store called Jeanette Bras. A turn in life that almost no one could have imagined when they first saw her in Terminator 2 back in 1991. Number 8. Xander Berkeley. Todd Voigt is one of those characters in Terminator 2 that many viewers still remember. As John Connor's hot-tempered foster father, Todd often appears impatient, rough, and constantly clashing with the rebellious teenager. The tension inside that household helps paint a clearer picture of the troubled environment John is growing up in before the real nightmare begins. And it's in that very house that the T-1000 first arrives, turning what should have been an ordinary domestic moment into one of the film's most chilling scenes. For Xander Berkeley, however, the role of Todd Voigt was only a small piece of a career that would stretch across decades. Unlike some actors who become permanently tied to one iconic role, Berkeley continued appearing steadily in both film and television for many years. Over time, he became a familiar face in Hollywood, often cast as military officers, government officials, or complex authority figures. In later years, many television audiences recognized him again through popular series like 24 and The Walking Dead. Even though he was rarely the central star, Xander Berkeley maintained a long and steady career in the industry, one of those actors whose name people might not immediately recall, but whose face audiences instantly recognize the moment he appears on screen. If this video brought back memories for you, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stars who shaped the movies and TV shows we grew up with. And tell us in the comments, which Terminator 2 character do you remember the most?